The Toyota GR Corolla is an excellent homage to the now late street-going rally cars. Today, I'll show you why. I'll go over its good and bad attributes and what's new for 2024.
To start things off, there were quite a few small changes for the new model year.
We have subtle tweaks to the aero ducts up front, along with some aluminum sheets put around the front and rear bumper to improve airflow and stability. I asked Toyota this was not to help vent the rear clutch pack. They also messed with the mounting bolts for the steering, rear suspension, and battery ground. All extremely subtle changes, but I'm happy to see the effort. The trims see a more thorough treatment. The base core trim now offers only the performance package. If you want stuff like the mid JBL sound system or heated front seats, you're gonna have to step up to the new premium trim, which equips the GR with all of the previously optional packages.
The premium gets rid of a little hard touch plastic and adds new parking sensors.
And the ultra suede and leatherette trimmed seats of the Circuit Edition. It's not cheap, but it really makes the Circuit Edition kind of a hard sell, as that model is now like 46 grand, but it too does see a few changes. One, you can only get it in the white or the new blue color. On the inside, blue accents replace the old red ones, and there's some new forged BBS wheels. And while the Morizo trim is done, Toyota now allows you to accessorize performance shocks and lowering springs. Along with the Circuit Edition spoiler, the latter comes at a very reasonable price, and I may buy one myself, as this is my own personal car. And after driving mine for over 8,000 miles, I have some strong opinions on this thing. So let's get into the good stuff first. One of the things that I appreciate the most about this is the powertrain. So it is Toyota's G16 1.6 liter inline 3 that's been boosted into the year 3000. It makes 300 horsepower. It sounds like an inline 6 with a speech impediment, and it also makes a lot of bros on the internet very anxious for you, as they'll tell you it's gonna blow up and this is under too much pressure. How will it ever handle the power of a cold air intake and stickers? Jokes aside, if you want a car that's easiest to tune, something like a Golf R or a Subaru WRX would probably be a better route, though people overseas have gotten these things to 400 horsepower without destroying them in the GR Yaris. Contrary to what a lot of people believe they can be modified, this is a purpose-built performance engine, manufactured by one of the most trustworthy companies out there. Before I jump on their throat, I'm gonna let them prove themselves. And you know what? I don't really have a big desire to modify it. I've gotten this from 0 to 60 in 5 seconds flat without 1 foot rollout. Using the industry standard, that is 4.7 seconds. Part of this is the gearing of the standard 6-speed manual transmission. You're gonna have to shift a lot, but it allows you to stay in the nice meaty power band of the 3-cylinder.
The shifter also makes it easy to snap through the gears.
While there is some turbo lag, it's not too egregious, and it doesn't feel dead when you're just driving it around town or on the highway. And when you do open it up, it pulls all the way up to that 7,000 RPM red line. I would like the shifter to feel a little bit more mechanical. It's very easy to operate, but you're only gonna feel the vibrations of the engine when you're at high RPM. The same goes for the clutch, which is a little on the light side, but it's easy to modulate, it's linear. It's an approachable car to drive near or at its limits, just not the most fun gearbox to operate. Another big perk is the handling. Like a performance car should, it has quick steering. The steering also has a nice weight to it when it's in sport mode, and it builds up all right as you're going through corners. Not the most communicative out there, but there's some life to it. And with the suspension, when you're on the track or really pushing it, there's gonna be a little bit of body roll, but I think it's perfect for back road driving, as it keeps the thing glued to the ground. It feels highly poised, and it's something that just feels confident on any type of road. The giant brakes with the 2-piece rotors up front bite hard, yet they're still pretty easy to modulate. And if you have big feet, you can heel-toe downshift as well, though some people find it difficult to do so with the GR, so it's nice that this also comes with auto rev matching. Of course, a differentiating factor from this to the Elantra N and Civic Type R is all-wheel drive. So this is a GR exclusive drivetrain. Power is always going to go up front, but you have 3 different modes to more or less tell it what to prioritize. You can send up to 70% of torque to the rear. In some scenarios, it can actually disconnect the rear wheels, something that I've never even noticed it do. It's always got traction, though don't expect it to be a drift monster. You really have to drive like an idiot to get the tail end out. But this does actually rotate really nicely under the brakes, which is something that I should add there for the handling. Optional on the core, standard on everything else, is the performance package, which gives you the limited slip front and rear differentials along with painted calipers. I found this thing to really claw its way through anything. Even snow, it performed really well. I've also come to appreciate the features. So stuff like that auto rev matching is helpful, but also the anti-stall. It gives you a little bit of throttle as you're releasing the clutch, which helps beginners and makes it a little bit less fatiguing in stop and go traffic. Plus, despite it being a manual transmission, you have adaptive cruise control with lane centering, and it works better here than in most other cars that I test.
With that lane tracing off, it's never bothered me on corners either. On the highway, it's accurate and smooth.
It's Toyota's latest Safety Sense 3.0 that gets over-the-air updates, and I know some of you are screaming in the comment section, I don't want any of this in my performance car. You don't need to use adaptive cruise or lane centering, and if you put it in sport and hold the traction control button, you can shut everything off and go into what Toyota calls expert mode. Toyota also implemented an actual handbrake. They don't offer that on the regular Corolla. And it's not just mechanical, it also disconnects the rear axle so that you don't damage it if you pull it while you're driving, which is kind of an unexpected move by Toyota, but don't expect them to pay your insurance deductible. I'm not sure how many people who are buying $40,000 hatchbacks are gonna rip that thing, so that may be a feature best left to the fourth owner. On top of the driver-related features, you also have a couple amenities on the inside that I wouldn't expect to see, like the available heated steering wheel and heated seats,
the crispy, customizable full digital gauge cluster, Toyota's smart proximity key on all specs,
and the wireless Apple CarPlay and Android Auto. And you know what, while we're talking about the interior, I've actually found the seats, while they lack lumbar control,
to be supportive enough for long journeys even at 6'3". The bolstering is good for twisty roads, but I'd probably think about replacing them if I was tracking the car regularly. The materials are cheap, but the circuit and premium spruce it up with a little less hard touch plastics.
And the back seat, while it's tight, has been big enough for my friends to deal with if they need to. Probably not something I'd recommend as a primary family vehicle, but it can do some work if it needs to. And you know what, actually, let's make that another reason that the GR Corolla is a standout. That is its size. So we have a lot of bloated cars these days, and to a lot of people in the United States, this is actually gonna be a downside, but for me, I like that it's truly a compact car. I love its short proportions in contrast with its big wide stance. It also, I'm sure, helps it be efficient. On the highway, I can get like 33 miles to the gallon. It's approachable in a parking lot or any tight roads. It helps it feel a little more playful. And again, if you're willing to compromise, it can work for passengers. And the seats do fold down flat, and since it's a hatchback, it actually was a big help when I was moving out of my old apartment.
The last reason is the biggest differentiating factor of the GRC, and that's the rally car personality.
It seems like a lot of people are hoping that this is going to be an all-wheel drive Civic Type R, and it's just not. It's not that kind of track weapon. In fact, the Elantra N will come close to it in that setting. While this is capable, it's more about bringing you an experience. It's a super easy car to trust on any road. It has enough traction to be Spider-Man. It's abusive. It's under high boost. The interior feels cheap. It's small. And nothing else on the market can quite capture the spirit of the old Ford Focus RS, Mitsubishi Lancer Evolution, or Subaru WRX STI, like the new GR Corolla. But all that comes at a cost. Now, before I start talking about the downsides, I also want to bring up reliability. This is a new model, but the GR Yaris has been out for a little bit now, and I'm not reading any big common issues for that thing. Again, this is an engine that's built to be abused. It also has direct and port fuel injection to help keep the intake valves clean. There's an old school vacuum operated wastegate, which gives me hopes that Toyota did still build this with longevity in mind. Obviously, it's gonna be more expensive to maintain than your regular cars. But when it comes to common issues, the only things people have run into really so far would be things like interior rattles, which I actually experienced myself and fixed by putting some kill mat in the door. Some people also get annoyed by how the brakes squeak a little bit as you're coming to a stop. That's more or less just a downside with performance brakes. Some also report unrefined powertrain noises, which is something I noticed too. It can kind of grumble a little bit as you're going through gears, but it's more or less just how it is. Now, after digging through some forums, I also heard some people report a random misfire under hard acceleration that spurred on engine codes, but then seemingly resolved itself. Apparently it's ECU related, but overall, after almost a year of being out, nothing here has been worrisome, and the GR Yaris, which has been out for a little while now, follows suit. Time is gonna have to tell before I can add this to the reasons to buy a GR Corolla, but now let's get into the reasons to run away, and the biggest one is hands down the markup. not the price. The price is actually reasonable. I mean, yeah, $40,000 for a Corolla. For that money, 0 to 60 in 5 seconds flat, quarter mile in the low to mid 13s. It's super confident, it handles well, it still has 4 doors and a hatch. This is not any more expensive. In fact, it's cheaper than the old Lancer Evolution or Focus RS when you adjust for inflation, but it becomes horrible after the market adjustments that have thankfully gone down. I'm starting to see more people even getting them for MSRP depending on the region or how long they waited, but still it's not an easy car to buy. If that's what you're looking for, something like a Hyundai Elantra N or especially the Subaru WRX would be better. I think the only competitor that fares worse is the Civic Type R. But when it comes to issues with the actual car, the cargo area when you have the seats up is very short. The interior quality is econobox to a T.
Interior storage is limited as there's no center console, something that takes a little getting used to.
And in the core grades, there's very little flair. There's also a considerable amount of road noise, especially from the performance tires. While I find it smooth enough on the highway, the ride quality on a bad road is not for the faint of heart. And some potholes have left scars on my brain. You also have the all-wheel drive system, which doesn't have a true rear bias, and on its own doesn't do a stellar job at rotating the car. A bit of a nitpick, as I do still like this setup. There's also that gearbox, which isn't bad or rubbery, it's just not as mechanically satisfying as something that you'd find in a Honda or Mazda. And lastly, for hard or hot track use, the rear clutch pack needs more venting or exhaust wrap in order to not overheat. The GR Corolla requires you to make some sacrifices, and while some of them I don't think are necessary to achieve the experience, the basic idea of turn an econobox into an absolute monster is alive and well here. While this is now more of a personal take of mine, I think right now people are obsessed with the money factor. They look at it, they see the price tag, they see what some dealerships are marking it up for, and then they see the shitbox interior and Corolla nameplate and just dismiss it as a whole. But the more that I live with it, the more that I realize this cheapness is a part of the personality. It also allows this to be built in a special factory in small numbers and not cost 45 or 50 grand. Well, I guess if you get the Circuit Edition, it's never mind. I can see it going down in history as a niche enthusiast icon. This kind of performance with this sort of no frills base Corolla nature is something that I think people are going to lust after in 10 or 15 years when absolutely nothing like it will be available.
Thanks for watching. If you enjoyed the video, then please leave a like to help me finesse the YouTube algorithm. Subscribe and hit the notification bell for more fun, detailed car content without fluff. Check out my Patreon for an additional podcast, and I'll catch you in the next one.